The reason why people save is essentially to cover future liabilities. Now, future liabilities can be many. The biggest future liability you will ever have is to care for yourself during your retirement. So retirement is very important. But other future liabilities include things like children's education, future medical expenses that you may or may not know about. Even a child's wedding or something like that. So there are lots of things that you save for. The biggest one obviously is for retirement. So, with people living a lot longer today, you actually need quite a lot of built up capital to be able to have a decent standard of living once you retire. And the risk for lots of people is that most people in formal jobs are on what they call defined contribution funds. It's a fund where you put in money into the fund, the employer puts money in the fund, and the day you retire, whatever is in that pool, what you put in plus the investment return, is what you'll have to live on. There's no more guaranteed pension from a business. So the risk for people is, if you don't save enough, then you may find that during your retirement, your standard of living takes a big hit. So really, you have to save for your future liabilities, the most important one of which is your retirement. The savings ratio in South Africa is actually quite low. The survey actually showed that people in the metros, the metropolitan areas, they save about 15% of their incomes, but that will typically be people in formal jobs. If you take the entire population, then the savings rate is only, the gross savings rate is only about 3%. That is extremely low. So what it says to you that, if you really do a sum, that you find if you save 15%, even if you do save 15%, and if investment returns in future are going to be lower, which is what we think they are going to be, then, that even 15% is not enough. You will still experience a drop in your standard of living once you retire. So the important thing is people are going to try to save more. So the question is, why aren't they? And the reason why people are not saving more is simply because they're under financial pressure. And they're under financial pressure because, essentially a couple of reasons. Number one, I think, you've seen over the last year or two, you've had inflation rising, you've had interest rates rising, you've had taxes rising, so it's become more difficult for people to save because their after-tax income is actually not growing that fast. And then you have at the same time, the thing that's very common is what they call the sandwich generation. That is people sort of in a middle age group that have children that still living with them, they have to pay school fees, university fees for, plus at the same time, they often have to care for elderly parents. So you're sort of squeezed in between, and now you get squeezed by the economy also, and by the fiscus, by the treasury. They're taking more tax from you. So the squeeze is getting, so the fact that people are actually still saving the same is actually, a surprisingly good outcome. I would have thought, would not have been surprised to have seen that fallen. I think in terms of saving, more generally, for people to save more, you've got to take the squeeze off that I talked about earlier. It means that, young people must be able to find jobs, which they're not at the moment. And that means that the economy must grow faster. So that is an important thing. So the focus really comes back to the economy and growing the economy faster, because you must remember a faster growing economy means you've got more taxpayers. More taxpayers mean, government doesn't have to take so much from your taxes to finance the expenditures. But also mean faster growing economy has young people finding work, and they become less dependent on the parents. So it really, a lot of it comes back to getting more confidence in the economy and growing the economy faster, so that people can get jobs.